Hey everybody, this is Damian from Studio Pro Musica once again. Today's video is on which chord for which key, major key triads. If you're a songwriter and maybe you play guitar, maybe you play piano, maybe some other instrument, and you've been working on putting some chords together for a certain chord sequence, or you've got a melody and you're trying to put chords to that melody, you're trying to harmonize the melody. Maybe you've encountered a situation where you're playing different chords and they don't seem to work well with each other. You know, maybe you're going G to C to G, and then you go to an E, maybe G to C to G. And there's something about it that just doesn't seem to fit. They're all perfectly valid chords. There's nothing wrong with a G chord or a C chord or an E chord. But in that instance, the E chord didn't quite seem to fit. What I'm going to offer you today is a method of making sure that all your chords fit with each other. And that's by making sure that they're all within the same key. They can all be found within the same key. That they are all diatonic chords. Diatonic's just a fancy word meaning the notes, or in this case the chords within a key. Okay? Now, I want to be upfront about this. There are tons of situations where you'll use a chord that's not in the particular key that your song happens to be in, and it'll sound great. So I'm definitely not saying that in your songwriting you should use only diatonic chords. That's not the case at all. But you know, there's an old saying that you got to know the rules before you can break them. And I think that kind of applies here. Know your diatonic chords, and then from there you can decide to change around a little bit, throw somebody a curveball, whatever the case. Now, today's video is on major keys and again, triads, okay? So what are we not going to be talking about? Well, we're not going to be talking about minor keys, okay? That's another video. We will do it, but that's in another video. And also, we're not going to be talking about extensions of chords beyond the basic triad. So we're not going to be talking about sevenths, ninths, 11ths, 13ths. Those are absolutely beautiful, and they should definitely be part of your vocabulary. But to keep things fairly manageable for this video, we're going to be talking about the triads that can be found in a key, okay? And triad is just a basic chord, like a C chord or an A minor chord, maybe B diminished, that kind of thing, okay? No sevenths, no ninths, 11ths, 13ths, okay? In order to understand what chords are within a given key, there's sort of a foundational skill that we want to have. And that skill is figuring out which notes are in a given key. Kind of hard to figure out the chords that belong in a given key when you don't even know the notes. In order to figure out the notes that are in a given key, though, we have to use a couple of pretty easy to apply concepts, a little bit of a formula, okay? Now, I'm going to give this fairly quick treatment, okay? Certainly, if you're not comfortable with it, leave a comment in the comments section. If enough people comment, I'll be very happy to do a separate and more thorough video on the process of figuring out which notes are in a given key. In the meantime, if you're not comfortable, you can always just Google what notes are in what key. You can look at the circle of fifths, which has all our key signatures. If you're comfortable with circle of fifths, you can figure it out from there. But I'm going to talk you through it anyways, okay? In order to figure out the notes that are in a given key, you need to start by being comfortable with what's called the chromatic scale. And chromatic scale is just all the notes that are in music. C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B. There are a total of 12 notes, and that's it. Now you heard, maybe you noticed that I didn't say any flatted notes. Well, certain notes go by two different names depending on the context, and why we call them one name versus another, that's a subject for another video also. But keep in mind that C sharp is the same as D flat. The fancy word is they are enharmonic. They have the same name. So C sharp is the same as D flat. D sharp is the same as E flat. F sharp is the same as G flat. G sharp is the same as A flat. A sharp is the same as B flat. So again, there's 12. C, C sharp or D flat. D, D sharp or E flat. okay? E, F, F sharp or G flat, G, G sharp or A flat, A sharp or B flat, okay? And then, of course, B. I'm just going to use the sharp names because it's easier to deal with. So once again, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F. There is no E sharp. E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, and there's no B sharp either, so from B we go right to C, okay? Those are all, if you think about a piano, those are the white and the black keys combined, okay? Guitar, you can think of it, that's one fret at a time. In fact, when we look at the chromatic scale, we want to bear in mind that each little place, going from one place to the next place, from a C to a C sharp, from a C sharp to a D, from an E to an F, from a G sharp to an A, whatever, that's what's called a half step. A half step. Each little movement along the chromatic scale is called a half step. And so if we do two places, okay, let's say from C, we skip C sharp, we go directly to D. That's called a whole step, two places. So one little motion, half step. Two little motions, whole step, okay? And if we can do that, then we can figure out the notes that are in a key. Because if we start, let's say, okay, let's figure out the notes that are in C major, and I'm going to start on a C. Here's my formula. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step, okay? Print it out, commit it to memory, sleep with it under your pillow, whatever you have to do. Whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. And so if I start on C major, whole step brings me to D. Then from D, another whole step brings me to E. From E, a half step brings me to F. From F, a whole step brings me to G. From G, a whole step brings me to A. From A, a whole step brings me to B. And from B, the half step brings me back home to C. One more quick example, the key of D. Let's start on D. So from D, a whole step brings me to E. From E, a whole step brings me to F sharp. From F sharp, a half step brings me to G. From G, a whole step brings me to A. From A, a whole step brings me to B. From B, a whole step brings me to C sharp. And then, yeah, that last half step from C sharp brings me back home to D, okay? And so as a result, I'd say the notes in D major are D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and of course the octave D. So that's my method for figuring out the notes that are in a certain key. Now, from there, I figure out the chords that are built off each of those notes. And it's pretty easy to say my first chord, the chord that's built off the first note in the key, is going to be a major chord. So if we're in C major, my one chord, my first chord, is a C major chord. You'd expect, after all, that in C major, the chord built off C would be major, and it is. It is. The one chord is major. The two chord, so in the key of C, C, D, the two chord, the chord built off D, is a minor chord. The three chord will also be a minor chord. So again, in the key of C, C, D, E, the chord built off E is going to be minor, E minor. My four chord is a major chord. So again, in the key of C, C, D, E, F, F major. My five chord is going to be major as well, or dominant 7. In the key of C again, C, D, E, F, G, G major or G7. And you think to yourself as a musician how many times you played a C chord and a G7 chord in the same song, and the answer is probably quite a few times. I said I wasn't going to get into sevenths and further extensions, 9ths, 11ths, 13ths, but the dominant 7 on the 5 chord is so common that I have to put it in, even in this sort of triad focused video, okay? So again, the 5 chord is either major or dominant 7. The 6 chord, well, in the key of C, C, D, E, F, G, A. The chord built off A, the 6 chord is going to be minor. And the 7th chord in a key is going to be what we call diminished. You don't hear it a heck of a lot in rock and pop music. You don't hear it a heck of a lot in country or blues. It's out there, and it's terrific, but it's somewhat less common. But again, the chords that are going to work well, the 1 chord is going to be a major, 2 is going to be minor, 3 is going to be minor, 4 is going to be major, 5 is going to be major or dominant 7, 6 is going to be minor, 7, if you choose to use it, will be diminished. Okay? So in the key of C, C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major or G7, A minor, B diminished. Let's do another quick example. We talked about the notes in the key of D a little while ago. Remember, it was D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and of course the octave D. So my 1 chord in the key of D, well, of course, it's going to be major. My 2 chord, built off the E note, is going to be minor. My 3 chord, built off the F sharp note, is also going to be minor. My 4 chord, built off the G note, is going to be major. My 5 chord built off the A is either going to be A major or A7, dominant 7. My 6 chord built off the B is going to be minor. My 7th chord built off the C sharp is going to be diminished. Okay? That's really it. That's my formula. Get the notes in the key, whole, whole, half, whole, 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 half, along the chromatic scale from the starting note is whatever key you happen to be in. And then major, minor, minor, major, major or dominant 7, minor, diminished. Okay? A final point. I said at the beginning that this is not some rule that you have to really, really rigidly follow. There are lots of examples where chords fall outside of a given key. Sometimes you've transitioned temporarily to another key. Sometimes the chord just is outside the key, but it still sounds great. I was listening to an old classic country song the other day, and it went, I don't even remember the name of the song, but it went C to D, C major to D major, to D minor, to G7. And if you stop to analyze that for a minute, okay, what am I expecting to see in the key of C major? My 1 chord should be major, yeah, C major. My 2 chord should be minor. Well, there is a D minor, but there's also a D major. That's odd. Anyways, moving on to the rest of the song, my 3 chord E should be minor. My 4 chord F should be major. My 5 chord G should be either major or dominant. Well, yeah, that song had a G7 in it. That makes sense. But what about that D major chord? Let's not get into an analysis of it right now, you know? It sounded really nice. C major, D major, D minor, G7, C. Sounded very nice. So again, what I've set forth for you today is only a starting point. You're definitely allowed to break the rules. But in the spirit of knowing the rules before you can break them, I hope you found today's lesson to be helpful. As always, please leave a comment in the comment section. I'd love to hear from you. If you haven't already subscribed to Studio Pro Musica, please do so. Finally, there's lots more to come. Thanks for watching. And again, thank you for being here at StudioProMusica.com.